If you're a multi-passionate hustler who loves squeezing the juice out of life and is always looking to get to the next level, then Share the Wealth is for you. Welcome. I'm Zeba.
And I'm Sarah.
We're two friends who just happen to live across the street from each other and share a deep passion for entrepreneurship and wellness. After meeting as neighbors, we quickly bonded over our similar journeys, starting out in Fortune 500 companies before diving headfirst into the world of entrepreneurship and opening fitness studios.
Together, we bring unique perspectives to the table, combining years of experience in business, fitness, and personal growth. Join us and our incredible guests as we explore the realities of being ambitious women, navigating business, motherhood, wellness, and the many twists and turns life throws our way. So let's start sharing. Chelsea, welcome to Share the Wealth, and we are so excited to talk to you about everything you've been doing and your own personal journey. And I'd love it if you could start off and just tell us about what brought you here, the challenges you faced, and what drove you to uncover all of the things that you have, and ultimately, we'll get there, but change your entire life.
It's so exciting to be here with you girls. My name's Chelsea. I'm a corporate dropout turned hormone health coach for really specializing in working with those high achieving women. And I've worked with, since quitting my job 6 months ago, I've worked with over 200 busy driven women, most of which are moms.
We can relate.
Business owners. You guys know how it goes. I've helped them look and feel the way they want to without any crazy cardio, without any fad diets, because that's not really the vibe anymore, by alleviating hormonal imbalances and gut imbalances that are very, very common amongst those high stress women. And I used to, obviously I was in corporate. That's how I know Sarah. So we worked together at Reebok. And
Reebok. Yes. I gave my career journey and a lot of love to Reebok. It's a special place. And any of us who were there together, it's still a special connection, right?
The tribe.
My college. I feel such an affinity for it and I will defend it to the death. I just loved it so much.
Same.
Challenges. I worked in always on, always working overtime, always doing so much, as most of those kind of digital roles are. And so for the longest time, my nervous system was just highly stretched. I was traveling a lot. I was also teaching spin classes because I'm a cycle instructor. I was burning the candle at both ends, hitting a CrossFit class in the morning, working 9 hours, teaching a spin class, and then sleeping 6 hours. I couldn't get to sleep, so I needed something to get me to bed. Being strung out for over a decade and just kind of overworking, overperforming, and not knowing how to take care of myself really landed me in a position where I was dealing with hormonal issues. I was type 2 diabetic, which made no sense for someone who was fit and healthy and eating all the right foods, or so I thought. I had high cortisol, stress hormone from lack of sleep, highly inflamed. I was puffy. Despite exercising and doing all the things, I just didn't feel and look the way I thought I should, considering how much effort I was putting in. And so that's what really led me to work with a practitioner myself who helped me kind of reverse some of these imbalances and kind of shortcut a lot of that process that so many women take, so many years to get there. I got there really quick once I started getting these answers. And so, I did lab testing. I did, got on the right supplements, made tweaks to my diet. They weren't big ones, but they were ones that made a huge difference as far as meal timing and meal composition. And it really helped me. I released 15 pounds without trying. Started falling asleep at 10 p.m., which honestly, that was unbeknownst to me. I just assumed that I was the kind of person who just would never fall asleep, right? And I would probably get to bed by 1 a.m. and wake up at 6. And that was just normal for me. I was like, I'm just a night owl. It's who I am. I didn't realize that was actually a hormonal imbalance. And so after I started fixing one thing and then the next, it all worked together. That's where my life changed. I jumped from manager to director. My career escalated. I quickly met a partner. My life changed because I just wasn't operating at the highest frequency and potential of who I was. And so until I did this work on my hormones, that was a prerequisite to stepping into the next level of my life. And if I hadn't done it, I can't even imagine where I would be now. And so now, shepherding women through this process and helping them shortcut the process, what took me 10 years is now taking my clients 3 to 6 months. Being able to share that gift with women from the practitioner side of like, here's the science, but also here's my personal experience, because it relates so deeply and resonates so deeply with these kind of women, is really fun. Working with women in this way is my biggest privilege and now my full-time job. I'm absolutely loving it.
Congratulations. Do you remember the first time that you hit rock bottom and that you were like, something has got to change? Like, was there a turning point? It sounds like you were living a rock star lifestyle. It reminded me of Elvis running himself into the ground and then needs to take something to come down and then needs to take something to come back up.
I had one where I fell asleep in a meeting with my boss. Like, you can't make this up. I mean, I was just not okay. And then the day that my pants just didn't zip. And it's like, how is this happening? I had a lot of hormonal acne. It was so visible, so embarrassing. I was in a boardroom and I just looked and felt like shit. And I was like, I need to do something about this. And that's kind of when I decided to take action. Sometimes the problem isn't bad enough until we hit that moment. That's the moment for me.
What was your journey to finding the right practitioner? Like, did you have experience like with maybe a general practitioner who said, oh, this is just what happens as you get older? How did you ultimately find the practitioner that led you in the right direction?
It started with a skin specialist. Now, I originally went to, I would say there's always kind of an inciting incident or inciting symptom that leads women to pursue this work, right? For me, while I was puffy, I didn't feel the way I wanted to. Mine was skin driven. So I was like, I'm going to go see a dermatologist, try to sort this out. He put me on an antibiotic for 12 months, completely wrecked my gut, and I had to rebuild my digestion. It compromised my immunity. It really set me back as far as my just in every possible way. Then I went to a doctor to kind of look into, well, why did I lose my cycle? Why is my period suddenly bad after losing my cycle for 5 years? I didn't know what cramps were until my mid-20s. I'd never experienced a cramp in my life. I know it was low progesterone, but at the time I didn't know. And the doctor's like, oh yeah, that's normal. Let's just change your birth control. Looking back, it's such a broken process. And for me, until I stepped into the natural health realm, I didn't get asked those questions of like, what are your stress levels? How much are you sleeping, eating, at what time, how much caffeine, getting light on your face in the morning? No one asked me those questions. I thought it was a little bit woo-woo because I'm a very science-based person. So I was like, this is all just a little, I don't understand how all this is relevant. The person who got me into the natural health realm, who was a skin specialist, but she was disguised because she was actually essentially a naturopath, but like didn't market herself as such. So I went for skin help and I left with my hormones balanced. I would do anything to get my skin looking good. I didn't want to look like a teenager when I'm speaking at work in a boardroom. So she got me on the right supplements. She identified she gave me protocols to help me look and feel better fast. And it worked. Within a couple of days, I was sleeping through the night. Within a couple, I want to say it was under 2 months, I had lost those 15 pounds and it just didn't come back on. And so I look at that and I'm like, that is how I see my ability to help women, because no one's going to go to a naturopath. It's just not sexy enough. Like no one really understands what it is, but if they see the result that they want and we disguise health as part of that process, that's where the magic happens. Looking at it holistically and implementing every piece of this to achieve a specific result that's really important to that specific woman is how we actually create health in the body. It's how we restore power to the body. People don't pay for things like, oh, I want to live longer. Like, oh, I just want to feel better. They pay for things like weight loss. They pay for things like their skin not looking terrible,
to look better,
you know?
Yep. People come in because they want to look a certain way and they never expect that also comes feeling better than you ever have, right? I love how you said it's not sexy enough and maybe the vanity takes you in, but the way you feel makes you stay.
100% correct.
So was it a big hurdle for you to get over like, this is woo woo? Or was it once you started feeling better and looking better, you were like, okay, I'm in, and you were able to adapt and change?
I was sold because it was delivering results very fast. Mm-hmm. I was getting compliments on my skin. People were telling me I was looking amazing. I stepped on the scale I was working for Adidas in Melbourne, Australia. I had lost 15 pounds. My clothes stopped fitting. I was eating plenty. It worked so well and it didn't feel difficult. There were some things I had to dial in. You know, I had to take my supplements. I had to make sure I was building better structure. I had to reduce cardio a little bit. I was teaching 8 spin classes on the side in addition to my job. I just trusted my practitioner so much because it was working and it felt amazing.
And you mentioned it being hormone related and getting to the bottom of that. For anyone listening who doesn't know how you find that out, it's with the help of a professional, but it's through blood work.
So not necessarily. What I think is really important for women to understand is when you go to a doctor, they're going to run your bloods. That's kind of what we refer to as like traditional blood work, looking for disease. What I do as a natural practitioner is we look for imbalances in your body that explain why you don't look or feel the way you want. It's good to go to a doctor to rule out disease, something that they need to escalate, something that's life-saving, right? But when it comes to things like weight loss, a doctor is probably not the guy for the job unless you're, severely obese, you have type 2 diabetes, and need to look at medication. So for most women, we look at inflammation testing, whereas blood labs look at hormones. The problem with a blood lab a doctor runs is blood is basically a homeostatic fluid that's going to pull from different parts of the body to keep it balanced. By the time your blood's imbalanced, your body's really messed up. I look at things like, okay, what are your minerals and vitamin levels saying based on a hair test, based on a saliva sample, based on urine testing that's much more close to the actual imbalance? And once we can identify those non-disease state imbalances, we can shift these levels and deliver results faster. That's why so many women who go to a doctor and get their bloods back, the doctor's like, you're fine. And I run their labs and I'm like, your estrogen is off the charts, your testosterone is low, your progesterone is low. Let's tweak that. I don't work with medications or HRT. That's what doctors do. We look at natural solutions to get these levels back so symptoms become less.
You also mentioned that you had to kind of scale back on cardio, and it sounds like you were addicted to those adrenaline highs. And I think there's something to be said for having that intense exercise. It almost becomes like a drug. Was there any withdrawal? How did you make yourself scale back when you are somebody who craves that every single morning run or the bike ride or whatever it might be?
Look, it's uncomfortable. And it's something I'm still healing. In my mind, it's whatever gets me the biggest calorie burn is going to help me be the skinniest. And I know in my rational mind now that is not true because I proved it to myself. I lost weight by walking and weightlifting. But in the back of my mind, there's always these little things that say, just go to the spin class. That's going to burn 500 calories. Do 2 of them. And I'm like, why? Stop. I think when we start to look at different metrics, like how you feel after exercise. So for a lot of my women who are, they're crushing a berries class every day, plus something else. We look at metrics like after you did that berries class at 7 p.m., how did you feel the next day? And they're like, I was exhausted. And I'm like, okay, so how did you feel when you just went on a walk after work? And they're like, my energy levels were much higher. Once we have the labs, one data of how these people are looking and feeling, it's so much easier to make decisions that are more in aligned with what your body actually wants. For most women, we just lack body awareness. We just lack, we're intelligent women who can't understand the fact that our overexercise is leading us to feel this symptom over here. We have to start to put 2 and 2 together. That's where women start to make different choices, myself included.
Did you also find that you were a little less hungrier, like the less cardio you did? Because that's something that I went through myself in teaching a ton of fitness classes, just like you, is, my appetite was out of control. And, you need energy to exercise, obviously, but you kind of fall into this vicious cycle. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this, because one of the things that really caught my eye on your socials was a video that talked about how you healed your relationship with food. And that really spoke to me. Exercise, it's the mental piece, it's the food piece, and the hormone, of course. So
what you're saying is spot on, because in general, if we take a step back and look at cortisol, the stress hormone, most women think cortisol and they think work stress, family stress, mother-in-law stress. When we are hitting heavy cardio, and I'm not here to demonize cardio, I still teach spin multiple classes a week. I'm just much more aware of recovery, fueling, how it's going to affect my hormones. I plan my cycle around it. But when we look at cortisol, we are going to spike cortisol by doing high intensity interval training. Our body is going to call for more carbs. We require more food when hitting super heavy weightlifting, 1 rep maxes. When we are doing the HIIT, when we are doing the berries, our body is going to need more food. So where we run into hormonal imbalances is where women get into this cycle of overtraining cardio, under eating carbs, And then their body falls apart. So they overeat and the hand's in the peanut butter jar at 10 p.m. And we get into this cycle, right? And so when we look at things like healing your relationship with food, we kind of start at a physiological level and then move into an emotional level, right? Because at the end of the day, what I was seeing, clients will do the physical work, they will do the protocols, they'll do the supplements, but there's an underlying emotional issue that's really fueling them to take this action in the first place. So number one, we have to balance our blood sugar. We have to understand how our blood sugar works and how it might be causing cravings. And blood sugar is part of hormone balance, right? So it's eating the right food at the right time around our cycle to make sure we are really balancing our blood sugar. We have to heal our hormones. We have to make sure that we're producing estrogen at the right times of cycle and progesterone at the right times of cycle. This is for premenopausal women. When these ratios get off, menopause starts to come in and get dicey. We have to look at removing gut toxicities like yeast, bacteria, sometimes parasites, causing cravings, inflammation, bloating, and high cortisol, which then causes you to crave more sugar. And so before we can even do any of the emotional work on food, we have to clean up our body. How is it working? What protocols do we need to fix imbalances to help women feel better fast? From there, it's like, we have to go beyond the plate after we've really mastered that sustainable system of eating that allows us to be both, enjoying favorite foods, choosing high vibrational foods that make us feel and look the way we want to. And once we master that, it's like we need to build emotional capacity to really feel our feelings. Because oftentimes we are reaching for food and we're using food to solve an emotional problem. So no matter how much work we do on our physical body, we need to get it stable and not have physiological cravings. We then need to look at emotional cravings. That's the piece of my work I'm realizing needs to be part of it. Because when you just do the physical, there's only so far you can get if that person has an emotional issue. For a woman who has struggled with feelings of worthlessness, who has struggled with feelings of not enoughness, that's where the emotional eating can come in. That happens for so many women. And high performers, we're all overperforming and moving so fast we don't feel. Teaching women to feel is a part of the relationship with food we need to fix.
Is that, and I hadn't said this yet, but I did work with Chelsea and her Healthy Hustle program. I remember you saying that once we got to the psychological part, people really fall off because it's so hard. So you get the results, you're feeling high energy, looking better. Strategically, you place that in the beginning and you want people to have the results fast so they're motivated to continue. And that makes sense. But then when you dive deep, it's harder. Is that still what you're finding?
Yes, it is. Some people are not ready to peel back the layers and do that work yet. That's okay because they still learn the tools and the tools have dropped into their subconscious and they can use them when they are ready. I think, Sarah, when you were in the program, it was my first time around. And I don't think I fully understood what tools women needed to really do that work. Sometimes I also have clients who have that big T trauma that maybe haven't done the therapy. They haven't done the work on that. And so therefore, there's only so far that it can get without getting professional help. So it depends on what camp you're in. But being prepared to look under the hood is a requirement for women who want the long-term result. I see a ton of brides who are like, I want to lose 20 pounds for my wedding. Help me do that. And I'm like, say no more. I got the protocols, do this, this, and this. And they do it. And they're like, holy shit. I didn't think that was possible without starving myself. And I'm like, yeah, that's how it works when you balance hormones and water weight and a lot of different things that are going to help you accelerate those results. Those women are different than the women who come to me and they're like, I want to fix this. I want to release the weight, keep it off. I want to live longer, be a better mother to my children. I want to excel in my career. I want to attract a partner. I want to feel attractive in my own skin. I want to build my confidence. There's a very different energy behind that client than the one who just wants to lose weight. That's why I have a shorter term boot camp where women learn the tools, high vibe eating, systems and strategies. And that will get some people who have done the emotional work really far. Like they don't need a 6-month program. But the women who really want that deeper level of transformation and to make this permanent and to really evolve as people, understand and treat their bodies well, those women extract more value from the longer term program.
You mentioned high vibe foods, what to eat when, and cycle. In my experience, it's a lot of educating people, myself included. It might sound overwhelming right now, but I remember something you said in the program. I think it was in response to me being like, I can't stop eating my kids' peanut butter and jelly crusts. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, you could not expect me not to eat the scraps. Because if you're really doing it, you shouldn't be. It was there in one way or the other. Maybe it wasn't direct, but I came back to, is it really that hard or is it just different? That really stuck with me because it's just different. You're just getting out of these routines and habits you're stuck in. You just have to look at it from a different way. It's not that hard.
That's funny. I forgot about that. It's true. It's not easy.
No, it's not easy, but it's just different.
Yeah.
Not to say that I don't do it sometimes, but I'm aware that I'm doing it.
Yeah.
When you have the knowledge and education, you just have to be aware of what's going on. This is an emotional decision.
Yeah.
Accept it.
Is there ever a time when emotional eating is something you should lean into, or is it always bad?
You know,
we're emotional creatures, right? Even my little afternoon chocolate or cheese square reminds me of certain phases in my life or my mom. There is sometimes that emotional factor. Is it all bad?
Labeling it good or bad, I would actually label it neutral. We have to remember emotional eating is a solution to a problem. Is a solution bad? Inherently, no. When we have an emotional problem and we're looking for different solutions, whether it's food, for women, a lot of the times it's food and wine. Those are the two most common that I see. Are those always bad? No. But when we take out the emotional charge and say, can we look at this and say, okay, how is this pattern of choosing food to solve an emotional problem serving and benefiting me in some way? How is it limiting me? If you look at it and you're like, I just want this square of chocolate. I just want it. There's a genuine desire. I like the way I feel when I have it. I'm going to have it. And afterwards, how do you feel physically, emotionally, an hour after, 3 hours after? And just evaluating that, right? It's like, if I feel good afterwards, if I don't feel guilty, have remorse or regret, and it's not affecting my physical body, then you could see that that's quickly a decision. If you don't feel good 3 hours after the PB&J, you feel a huge energy crash, you can evaluate. It's not my job to tell you emotional eating is bad. It's your job to decide what solutions are actually delivering the results that you want.
That reminds me how you say it's a journey, right? For you, it was 10 years. You're trying to make it shorter for us. Thank you. You do have to eat those things once you're tuned in to see how they make you feel. Something might not come up for 6 months from now when you have an opportunity or something is tempting, and you just have to do it or not to evaluate and reflect.
That's exactly right. It takes putting on a lab coat and doing research. I still have moments where I go to a wine and cheese board night at a friend's. I tend to not do gluten and dairy because it doesn't feel good. It spikes my heart rate. It affects my sleep. I have an energy crash. I get really moody and angry when I have like pasta or cheese. Like I just get grumpy and anxious. And so, can you relate?
Well, I was like, why am I so angry right now? What did I just eat? Maybe it is some of these inflammatory or trigger foods.
Food rage is a huge thing. And until women do, like, for example, women in boot camp, because they're like prepared for like the process of observing how foods make them feel, within a couple of days, they're like, oh my God, I feel so different. When they add in foods after boot camp and observe their reaction, they're like, whoa, my anxiety is caused by this food and it doesn't exist when I don't have it. So there's such an interesting tie to your physical result and your energetic result. So most women committing to building body wisdom and your reaction to foods 1 hour, 3 hours, and 24 hours later can make a huge difference. Back to my example about a wine and cheese night. Sometimes I will just be like, fuck it, I'm just going to do it all. Cheese, wine, whole block of cheese. And I'm also going to have the bread. And my digestion's off for 72 hours. Like I can't go for 3 days. I'm exhausted. My sleep is trash. I've got like the Oura ring and it's telling me that like my inflammation is super high. My stress is super high. I'm really grumpy. My energy levels are crappy and it affects my workout. So I'm like, okay, how long am I going to let myself just go to town versus making choices that are actually feeling good within my body? And that's a process, right? Like I'm 10, 15 years into this process and I'm still learning. Extending yourself some self-compassion as you learn, because at the end of the day, this is just building a skill. It's like learning Excel. You are just learning the skill of how to feed and treat yourself, which is not easy in a food economy, marketing highly processed foods to us. These foods are engineered to make us want more of them. Developing some wisdom around that is the biggest piece of advice I would have for women serious about looking and feeling good.
Do you see, now you're doing this full time, so I don't know what came first, the chicken or the egg, but I find that I'm seeing more language and conversation about how the food is engineered to make us feel this way, removing certain chemicals from our foods and being aware. Do you think there's hope out there? Comparing it back to when you started this journey, do you think it's easier now for someone looking for answers to find them?
There's more resources, more companies producing better products. The sheer level of availability of, a healthy protein bar, more healthy protein powders and, healthy snacks, healthy food for kids is much more. So I think there's benefits there. That said, there's now 140,000 man-made chemicals in the United States. And that has doubled since the last time I ran those numbers, probably 4 or 5 years ago. So I think if we return to arming yourself with the information to make good decisions, it's not actually that hard, because you have your go-to places where you can buy your food, you have your go-to restaurants, you know what to avoid. Once you have this skill, it's not that hard. While the food system is really messed up, there are ways around it. Clever and have the right coaching and tools.
Ignorance is bliss. After learning from you, and I was learning from you for my own self-improvement, but naturally that affects everyone in your life. So children, it was really hard for me to feed them things that I was feeding them. Like, oh no, mommy's going to have this super clean dinner, but here's your Kraft mac and cheese. Like maybe in the beginning I had to see that, but then I went down a rabbit hole and probably even fell off a little on my own progress because I was focused on what I was feeding them. And that's getting, like you said, that is getting so much better. And there's things like Thrive Market, and you still have to read the ingredients, but you need the education. It's a journey.
It totally is. I want to stress that for any woman listening now on Instagram, and this guy's telling you that you shouldn't be eating this, and this woman's saying that this is bad. And there's so much noise, which is why sometimes it's helpful to have someone just tell you what to do. But what I would also say is, this is a really overwhelming process. And I think so many women see, oh, I'm not allowed to eat that. I always tell women, focus on yourself first. Get yourself out of survival mode, get your cortisol down, see how food makes you feel. And once you've mastered that, there's levels to this, right? There's levels of the video game. You beat this level, mom's sorted out. It's not perfect, but sorted out. Then we make changes for the kids. Eventually, the husband's like, oh, Sarah's looking snatched. I need to get my shit together. Yeah. So I'm starting eating like her. Then the husband gets on board. It's difficult because it requires being different. And, there's people who are at dinner and I can't eat that. My health coach told me not to. That's not the vibe. The vibe is I'm choosing this food because it makes me feel good. Not I need to do this because someone told me to. It becomes an actual choice that you're buying into. And that's a process.
Yeah, I agree. Can you be the person who brings your own Tupperware to the restaurant or dinner party if you really want to be strict? But if you can just learn what's making you feel, you don't have to be that person. Yeah. It doesn't have to be so strict. You were saying the husband gets on board because hormones get balanced. Now I can sleep. Now I have energy. I think it's the energy, especially for anyone busy. When you're in a partnership raising kids and one person's happy and they're getting good sleep and the other person's sluggish, that could have you could really be butting heads. In my experience, it was more about the energy and mental clarity than the scale.
It's so important to get started because everybody runs on the mommy Wi-Fi. If we take care of ourselves and put the gas mask on and watch our diet.
Not the gas mask. Well, the oxygen mask.
The oxygen mask but if you put on your oxygen mask first, it really does make a big impact because then you're able to help everybody else.
Mommy Wi-Fi. It's brilliant.
You've said that before. when you're sick or mom's out.
If I ate something that pissed me off, the kids sense that, they notice I'm not all there and not reacting the same way. It affects them so much more than when it happens to their dad. If I'm not okay, nobody's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I love that idea of teaching yourself, feeling it yourself, and then, starting to think about the rest of your family.
Yep. It's just knowledge is power. Ignorance is bliss.
It's like everything I knew, it's uncomfortable. Humans don't like change. When we just look at our nervous system, it's designed to keep us where we are and not make changes. And when everything's bad for you and you have to learn this new skill and change everything, it's really uncomfortable. But when the results make it worth it, it's easier to change from a desire.
Yep. Well, we're so happy for you and what you're doing. I wanted to add something about the community you've built. I have an example of being in a group with women. Some were in Australia, some were in the US. I didn't know any of them. And I had one woman reach out to me directly on the side because of a question I had raised about the psychological, emotional eating part of the work. I was saying, I take anti-anxiety medication. How do we peel back the layers if you're supplementing with something that's keeping the layers tight? She reached out to share her experience weaning off that medication because of, we were going through the same program and some tools that she had. And I'm like, oh my God, like that is just the most amazing thing. And that's because these people are on this journey feeling good and sharing. You're building an amazing community.
I'm sure that's one of those things that you never thought, like when you set out to do it, like that was like not on your radar at all. And now probably seeing these women thriving and connecting is probably filling you with so much purpose and joy to keep doing it.
I love that story. I did not know about that. It's so true. These women form friendships going through the process together. I used to do one-on-one coaching. My coach, who I work with, she's a business coach, she was like, Chelsea, you need to get them out of one-on-one and you need to put them in a group. And I was like, there's no way. There's no way. I can't serve these women in that way. It's a terrible idea. And she was like, trust me, they will get better results when they're working together as a group. Launched a group program and Sarah was in the first one. And it was 100% accurate because there's an identity building piece. You're becoming a different person when you do this work and going through those challenges together. And also seeing women who are at different points of their journey. You can see someone who's a couple steps ahead of you. They're on the same train, but 3 steps ahead. It just gives you a point of reference and it helps you get better results. And then you're that person for someone else. Questions, because you're like, oh, I wouldn't have asked that, but that's interesting. I'm going to note that one for when I'm pregnant or for when I'm coming off my SSRI or for when I'm when I decide to take my birth control out. Like and I'm not saying we have to like wean off all these medications. That's not a requirement. I'm just giving some examples of things that women have chosen to do and taken advice from. So the community element is part of cementing the process.
A process that could potentially and historically has been such a lonely thing, right? You're going on a diet, changing your eating habits, dealing with emotional baggage, and it can feel very isolating. Like, I'm the only person going through this. I really wanted the cookie and the glass of wine, but I didn't have it and I feel so alone. Exactly. To have that community, to know that you're not alone and to learn from is so invaluable.
Totally. And I know, Chelsea, you've been there and you've been through it. At this point, you seem like the expert who's following, and learning together.
And also you're like literally glowing off a computer screen. Like you look so freaking healthy and radiant, like through, like you're pretty far from us on a computer screen and you're just like, wow.
She's her own billboard. She has to be.
Girl, there's a lot of people who don't do their own programs. I do everything I tell my clients to do. I take my supplements, I eat the right foods, I work out, I get 8 hours of sleep, and I use good skincare.
Yeah. I love your stories. See ya. You're going off the rails, but I know for 72 hours or forever, I'm going to pay for it, but it's worth it. And you have supplements that help, or you recommend supplements that
help even you out.
Yeah. To help the side effects.
I'm on Instagram and I'm creeping. What are my clients doing this weekend? I'm excited. Go live your life, do your thing. You're going to come back around, enjoy your life, enjoy a mix of fuel versus fun. You need both. Some health coaches go way too much in the fun direction or way too much in the fuel direction, eating chicken and broccoli out of a Tupperware every day. It's just not the vibe. We don't love that. We want it all. Like I work with women who truly want it all. They want the partner, kids, successful job. They want to feel and look snatched. One client had 2 kids in her late 30s. And she came to me because she had the FUPA. She wasn't feeling good. She was exhausted on an SSRI. She did her protocols. We did lab testing, got her eating right. She sent me a message 3 months later being like, I just went bikini shopping for the first time in literally since I've been married. And thank you. My FUPA's gone.
Yeah.
And this is how it works, right?
Wow.
She was feeling better. Changes with her family and kids. Great. She bought a bikini. And that maybe is a goal, but all the other stuff is really the magic. But I do want to just have you like, if someone, I know people are listening and they're like, how do I do this? So
Like today.
where do people find you, and what are you doing? 6-month programs, small groups, boot camps? What are your current offering?
For first steps, if you're hormone curious, jump into my Instagram. I have a free ebook that I give to women. It's just 6 steps for hormonal weight loss, and that's in my link in bio. It's called The Chocolate Lover's Guide to Hormonal Weight Loss.
It's my name all over it.
It's so good. And that just, obviously it gives some initial first steps, but without really going deeper on the personalized protocols, without getting a proper nutrition plan, there's only so much progress you'll make on your own, to be transparent. I have 2 ways to work with me. There's a 2-week boot camp I run quarterly, launching in April, designed to get those first 5 to 10 pounds off, just to start building trust with your body, to start feeling and looking better fast, to start making improvements to your sleep. And from there, I also have a 6-month program for women who really want to get those results and make them permanent. So that's where women are making massive progress, getting huge results. One client messaged me, she's down 41 pounds, sleeping through the night. All her perimenopausal symptoms are gone. That's the level of work we do in that program.
Does the 6-month program start at a certain time? Is that a group?
It's group with a one-on-one element. You can join the first week of any month is how those cohorts run.
Gotcha. And on Instagram, you're healthy with Chels.
That's
right?
the one. Yes.
Anything else?
I wanted to ask her offline, not recorded, but I'm brainstorming the question with you guys. Like, how to, when you fall off the rails and you're trying to come back, like quick hacks to get back into it, or on the days you're not motivated, just some takeaway tips anybody could do.
Yeah.
I don't know the easier way to frame it.
What do you think, Chels? Like, I would say if we were going to ask like motivation, right?
Yeah. Like when you're just like in a rut, some people might see they're still like so far into their rut that they're just like, I don't think I'm ready to do this challenge. What would you tell anybody? Forget the thing that doesn't seem doable. I know that's your 6, the freebie that you have, which is a really good thing to get going. Is it journaling, food, paying attention to how you feel? Or how do you motivate someone who's really resistant to changing themselves?
There's 2 questions here. One is what to do when motivation runs out. The other is how to dig yourself out of a hole when you don't feel ready for change.
Thank you.
That's what coaches do. For the person who feels stuck, the same exercise we were talking about earlier, where we're looking at emotional eating, you have to evaluate the serve and limit of your situation, because being stuck is a solution. Being stuck and staying in these patterns, it's serving you in some way. So there's something that is benefiting you because you're choosing it. We don't choose anything if it doesn't benefit us in some way. Even if it's not the best solution, staying stuck and choosing to feel miserable is a choice. And so making a list of like, how is this serving me? And be honest, say, it's not serving me, I feel dreadful. That's where we peel back the layers. Why are we stuck? What are we afraid of on the other side? For a lot of women, there's a fear underlying the thought of moving forward in life. And let me give you a couple of examples. These are just ones that I hear with women who talk about wanting to do the program. I sense they're stuck on something. So we take the program off the table and I say, okay, let's say you lose the weight, you make these changes, you have huge energy. What are you afraid will happen? They say, nothing, that would be great. And I say, okay, why aren't you choosing that? When they dig deeper, it's, oh, if I lose the weight, I might leave my husband. If I will feel threatened and feel upset that I'm skinnier than she is, and it'll affect our relationship. If I lose the weight, I actually have to show up in my business and take on more responsibility. So anytime we're stuck, there's a fear beneath that. So working out what that fear is something women can dig into and shift. But at the same time, you can't change if you're not ready. No one's ever ready for change. Change is difficult, but the women who feel the fear and do it anyways are the ones that are going to get the results. And the ones who feel don't do anything are the ones who stay in the same pattern for 20 years and look back and say, I just wasted my entire life.
It sounds like a big form of self-sabotage, right? Like you're afraid to succeed, so you're going to just stay stuck.
Once that gives you clarity on what you're afraid of, you're like, oh, that's not so bad. I can start imagining myself in those scenarios and saying, okay, I would rather be more successful in my business and a better mom at the expense of taking on more responsibility and looking for new solutions to support yourself in the actual fear. For a woman who has hit that rock bottom and she's decided to change and she's doing the things, I think, first of all, being aware that you're going to have those crappy days and that as part of the process can be really helpful. And so it's like, so many women, their self-sabotage pattern is, well, if it's not perfect, I'm not doing it. And so when they fall off, they're just like flipping tables and saying like, screw it, I'm just going to give up. And it's like, that's not the vibe. And that's where mindset work, which is what I do with clients in the 6-month program. It's not as much in the boot camp. We don't have time for it. There's a little bit of it, but that's where the mindset work is going to help keep you on track. And so it's things like accepting that things are not perfect. It's accepting that you are not perfect. It's choosing micro habits when you do fall off track. Like, what are those go-to non-negotiables that you're going to do when you have a bad day of eating? It's, choosing not to completely throw in the towel. I saw a meme of a woman who spilled a drop of water and poured an entire bucket after the drop push. And it's like, that's what like saying fuck it is, where it's like, I overate a little bit of ice cream, so I'm just going to binge. And it's like, is that really the best? And so implementing mindset tools and making a deliberate choice to stay in the game. And this is why, I was a college athlete. Like, I played hockey, been on team sports. I'm disciplined. This comes through in my coaching. I get clients who may be disciplined in certain ways, but, being coached by someone who does have that discipline and that expectation of them really helps them stay on track. So becoming that person themselves, so they don't need me. My job is to make myself redundant. In 6 months, you shouldn't need me. You should learn the tools, have me in your corner, and then bon voyage. If we're chit-chatting in the DMs and you're telling me how good your life is, great. But otherwise, I don't want to hear from you because you should have everything you need.
That's amazing. Something that kept coming up, I don't have enough time. We touched on this because when you do the work, you get more time because you're efficient and have energy. I think the time thing and taking care of yourself is something most women don't do.
Well, there's always objections, right? So when like kind of what we were talking about before, where you're like, I'm stuck, I feel like crap. We'll look for any excuse or any objection to kind of create some friction to slow us down, right? And time is one of the biggest ones, right? But also, it is a very big reality that if you have kids, if you're working, if you also own a Pilates studio, if you're also trying to be a good wife to your husband, blah, 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 traveling, doing all the things, time is an issue. But what you're saying is so true. You create more time when your energy is vibrating at a different frequency.
Mm-hmm. Agree.
Love it. I think that's exactly what I was trying to ask when we were trying to close out the conversation, because it is inspiring to feel empowered and to understand why you're choosing not to change. I hadn't thought of it that way.
It's the stuff some people don't think is related to eating.
Yeah.
But it's all related. Mm-hmm. You're amazing. Thank you so much.
And next time you talk to us, we're going to be glowing too, just like you.
Yes, I got some tips, baby.
After your protocol.
That's it.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, the best way to support us is by subscribing, sharing the podcast with a friend, and leaving a review. And we'd love to hear from you. Comment below or slide into our DMs. See you next time.